Good morning, Nadine. How
Oh,
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
How was your week?
Week has been great, busy, of course, but we're looking forward to the March break and all the fun with the kids.
That's nice. That's nice. Anything special planned?
Most likely staycation. We're gonna just do things in the city and keep the kids busy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
So I have a 12 and a 14-year-old, even though they're older, but my hands are quite busy.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so speaking of being busy, I'll use this word to segue into what we're going to be talking about today because you are a very busy woman. You're a career woman, you're a mother, and you also run a very cool Instagram account called Trans by Sam B, where you share a lot of clothing tips, you know, professional tips. So let's start by that. Tell me a little bit about how you started your Instagram page and your mission on social media.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for me, Instagram initially, I think as it started for most people, was a platform kind of like Facebook where you can post pictures and your family and friends are connected. But I have always been the kind to have a purpose, and I'm a very, very value-driven person. So for me, I'm like, how can I help others? And I feel that social media, Instagram specifically, became that forum for me where I can be creative, but also share my experiences around my career journey that I've had for 20 years. And of course, tying into that is the confident styling, which I think goes hand in hand with being confident, being professional. And that's how it came about. And I feel that a lot of women on Instagram, men as well, need that career advice because you're like, who do I go to? Do I need a career coach? So sometimes you need those quick tips. So
Mhm.
my page provides you with that. And then if you're looking for some styling tips for work or for a weekend put together look, I can do that for you as well.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I follow you, so I'm familiar with your content. Um, so what did you study? And tell me a bit about your career and how you progressed. Because you talked about, being uh, having had a career for 20 years now. So tell me a bit about the progression, what you studied, and where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. So I studied computer science, applied computer science. I have a bachelor's in that, which was not a very common field for women to be in. I remember being one of 11 girls in my program and, being told, funny story on the side, one of the guys saying, "Oh, you should be in fashion." And, being, 18, 19, you're just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm heartbroken." Nevertheless, I did finish that degree and it was something that, again, I wanted to get into something that excites me, and computers for me was really exciting. It's logical, solving problems because I'm a problem solver at heart as well. That's how I started. And then it was really just getting into the corporate world, building relationships, really, kind of breaking barriers, I think, because anywhere I went, I'll be honest, there weren't a lot of women in IT and information technology. It's a very male-dominated industry, as I'm sure you're aware.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like at my company, I would say I don't even think we have a female IT employee. Or if we do, like I haven't seen her. I haven't had to ask her for anything. So I can attest to that.
Yeah, yeah. And it was challenging and it was like let's take on that challenge, but of course it was hard as well because you're not seeing many who look like you or probably feel like what you do in that day-to-day at your corporate job. But for me, it was, I can do it. There's a lot of self-motivation that went into, doing that career for 20 years and sticking through it as well. Because I know a lot of people start with it and then they switch because of however, whatever's life's throwing at them. But for me, yeah, I stuck through it and I'm blessed. I've had a fairly progressive career. I started at the help desk, can I help you reset your password?
Yeah.
To leading a team of 70 people at a point where we're managing global projects, and it's been quite the journey. It's had a lot of challenges, and for me, again, going back to your earlier question, is how do I help people learn from what I have learned over these years, right? So that's where it all kind of comes full circle for me.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about some of those things that you've learned. Can you give me an example of something that you didn't know going into your career that has helped you and could help others today?
Yeah. So a little bit about my family, right? So I come from a South Asian family. And yes, my parents were very much so just do your bachelor's, make sure you're educated. You should always be independent, right? So that was always on the back of my head. It was never like become a doctor or become a lawyer, right? So when I was choosing computer science, I didn't have that mindset, well, this is the kind of field a woman should be in. I'm like, well, this excites me. I should get into it. So, I started that. And then I think as I was going through my career of actually choosing that, I started to see a lot of um, gender inequality, or they're not equal opportunities, or there's not a lot of people who look like me, right? And then you're like, wait, I didn't think it was going to be like this, right? And even in I would say movies or TV shows, you never really saw a lot of women in IT.
That's true.
So it's not like you had this image of women being in technology, right?
Yeah,
So it was definitely unique. And then being a minority on top of that puts things, in a different perspective as well. And I'll tell you a little story. Of course, being a woman, I was pregnant twice. And I
okay.
remember being pregnant and telling my boss at a time that I'm pregnant. And the first response I had from him, which I laugh about now, which I think is a serious problem, he's like, oh my gosh, that's why I wanted to hire a guy because he wouldn't
No
get pregnant
way.
and go on maternity leave, right? And this happened years and years ago. So me, I did being pregnant for the first time, being the only one of very few women in technology, you're like, is this acceptable? Is this okay?
What
Do you know
was your
what I
role
mean?
at the time? Yeah, absolutely.
I was in a manager role, right? And so I never really I just thought I'm like, well, you didn't congratulate me in my head, right?
That's
But
true.
I thought it was okay to say that. But now in hindsight,
Oh,
I wouldn't
today a
know.
comment like that would not fly.
Exactly, right? So again, that, being young and naive in your career and not having a lot of support from other women or having them around you, I thought a lot of things were acceptable when they're not,
Yeah.
right?
So, how did you respond at the time, and how would you respond to a comment like that today?
So how I responded to it, I think I was quite embarrassed, to be honest, to a point where like, oh my gosh, not that I said, oh my gosh, why am I pregnant? But it was like, am I doing something wrong? Should I
Yeah,
have
like I've inconvenienced you. I'm the problem.
Yeah. And a little bit of like embarrassment and thinking, oh my gosh, maybe I did something wrong, which was absolutely wrong of me to think that. But today, first of all, I wouldn't let anybody make that comment like that. But if they do make that comment, I would definitely say, this is not acceptable. You know what? You were born as well. Your mom gave you birth as well, and women have equal rights to be where you are at an organization, right? So I would definitely respond in a way and tell them that they're out of line and
Yeah,
they shouldn't be making statements like that. You can't be happy for me, no problem, but also don't make sexist comments because
yeah,
this point blank is a sexist comment, right? So yeah.
yeah. And what do you think has helped bring you to this point where you went from being embarrassed by your superior's comment to now not being willing to tolerate a comment like that.
I think part of it is I'm in my 40s
Yeah.
and I know my 20-year-old something wouldn't have the experience or the confidence to speak like that. So I one thing is definitely age and wisdom, which
Hmm.
I hope that the 20-year old something can have now, which I'm hoping to help through my social media. Um, but I think the second thing, the pivotal point for me was when I gave birth to two girls. And to me, I was like, okay, I need to be a role model. Excuse me. And really set them up for success and show them that it's not okay to accept certain things and have the equal opportunity and nobody should make comments like you run like a girl or girls don't play soccer, right? So it was always in my subconscious that I need to be strong for my girls, and I think that
Yeah.
was a pivotal point for me.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that I'm helping my girls and other young girls to kind of say that anything is possible, right?
Yeah. And do you feel like the from my perspective, I feel like we've really moved forward as a society as far as women in the workplace and gender equality. Do you think that that has also given you some, like, not that you needed permission, but did it somehow make you feel empowered to stand up to manifestations of sexism in the workplace?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that having the tools and resources, but also an example would be having a discrimination policy in place.
Correct.
So you know that if someone is out of line, and they're doing something that shouldn't be doing, you have the tools and resources to tap into, and you feel protected,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So definitely that also enabled that, empowerment.
Yeah. Okay. So you went on mat leave the first time. Did you feel like your job was threatened in any way? Were you worried that there would still be a place for you when you came back? And also, have you been at the same company for all these 20 years?
No, so just to address your first question around, I've always been ambitious, right? I was like, I I wanna be a do-it-all, which I know it's not possible. But I wanted to really have a career and be ambitious. And when I was going on maternity leave, of course, thought crossed my mind around, am I gonna have the same role? Am I gonna regress in my career, right? So I think for all the women listening, don't worry about it because I think you have the right to enjoy motherhood as well. And when you make that decision to be a mom, don't let any other thoughts take that away from you. So I wanted to enjoy motherhood. Yes, I had that thought in my head, oh my gosh, am I going to regress? But I think how you come back to work, your skill set, your resources, your support group, I think it all helps you get back into workforce and just come back strong. Because I think, as I said, to me, having kids only made me stronger. So I think that it helps you, it defines you, it adds character to you as a woman when you are a mom. So don't be afraid to take that maternity leave if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the second question, I think, what was sorry, can you repeat that for me? What was the second part of it?
Uh, if you've been at the same company for,
Yeah, no, so in 20 years, I remember now. So I have switched companies quite a bit, actually. And I think in the beginning, you're like a sponge, right? You want to absorb, you want to learn, you want to move on from one role to another. And then, after that, you kind of become a little bit more steady. It's like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So I've had multiple organizations. I've worked for healthcare, I've worked for entertainment, I've worked for fashion. I've had a little bit of everything, and I
Yeah.
think it just makes your portfolio diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is your role today?
So today I'm a senior vice president in a technology organization.
Okay.
And, I oversee a global team of, where we basically deliver on initiatives that are fairly large, and we plan and we execute. And again, it's very much a technology base. But at the end of the day, I have a great team who
Yeah.
supports me, who we've built over the years.
Okay. Do you still experience sexism at your level as an SVP?
Um, that's an interesting question. I think that it's different now than how it used to be, right? I think we have these
Subtle
unconscious, pardon?
or subtle?
It could be more subtle and it could be behind the scenes that you're not seeing,
Okay.
but I do think personally, not even talking about the organization that I work at, I think there's still a lot of room to become more gender diverse as it comes to making decisions and socially influencing our decisions, whether it's in politics or in organization and corporate, anywhere we go, I think we need that gender diversity to have women's perspective as well as men's perspective.
Okay. And how do you feel like those perspectives differ between men and women?
I love that question. So, going back 20 years or 15 years, whatever you want to call it, right? I always had that misconception that women need to dress like men and act like men to come across as a leader, right? And
Yeah.
over the years, so I was hiding certain traits of mine, right?
Saz?
Which is, I am a huge empath. So I think leading with empathy and showing vulnerability came later for me.
Okay.
And I think that women bring that emotional intelligence, that empathy, and the vulnerability to the leadership that are absolute key traits. Research shows that. And I think you build stronger relationships with your team. You build stronger teams and you make great decisions as a result of that. And I read recent research where the decisions that involved women are successful 35% more so than without women. So
Incredible.
yeah. And I think that, of course, men have their strong traits as well, but I don't think you need to become one or the other. I think we can learn from each other, and it's okay to, show you don't know something and show that to your team and be a human
Yeah.
because it only strengthens that bond between you and your team.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Clifton Strengths?
No.
No. It's a survey or more so a questionnaire that was developed by, I believe it's the Gallup organization.
Okay.
And it's basically a test that measures your your skills in the workplace. And there's, I believe, like 34 of them.
Mhm.
And I think it's used by a lot of organizations worldwide. And a couple of years ago, I did it. And my top skill was actually empathy. And I remember feeling like I just don't know, like if and I did it like with a group of friends like outside of work. But I remember thinking like if ever my company like decided to run a test like that, I don't know that I would be proud necessarily that this is my top strength because again, we tend to value other traits in the workplace. And if anything, empathy could kind of be seen like a as a weakness, you know? Um, Thankfully, my the rest of my top five is a bit more like intellectually focused. But still, I remember thinking like, oh, I just feel like I'm, you know, the little like harmless, unopinionated, like girl in the group when in fact there's like so much more to me than that.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's just to your point. I totally agree that empathy is a huge strength in the workplace. It
Yeah.
allows you to connect with your colleagues, to read the room, to understand when it's time to say something, when you know perhaps it's not time to pick a battle. It also allows you to like you know assess whether it's a battle worth picking in the first place.
Yes.
It really is a skill. Um, it's interesting that you bring that empathy as a woman, but also because you work in IT and you mentioned that it's a very logical, data driven field, you still feel like you benefit from being an empathetic person?
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, just relationships, but I think as you said, it ties to emotional intelligence, right? So making decisions, being part of that decision making process, being in a room full of, maybe egoistic people, like you know how to navigate yourself. And I think that empathy, yes, there's times when you may need to park that, right? And really base your decisions on what are the facts? Let's walk me through it, right? Whereas when your team member is pregnant, bring that empathy right at the front, right? Or when somebody's going through something in their life or they're not performing well, right? So it's really understanding their perspective. I think putting yourself in their shoes, that's where for me, empathy and sympathy is so important in understanding people, understanding organizations, understanding decision making. So I think it's beyond just relationships. So I definitely, for me, it has been and my team has always mentioned this to me, like you're a great leader. We've built a great rapport over the years. And from retention perspective, my team stayed by my side, supported me, and we've all been together for many years. And that all
Awesome.
goes to say, it's who you are as a person and what traits you bring, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that speaks to the type of leader that you are, that people are loyal to you and that there's no, I mean, there's not much of a turnover in your team,
Yeah,
which is
thank
also beneficial for the organization also
you. You got it. Yeah.
as a whole. Yeah. Um, what are some misconceptions about women in leadership roles?
So I think one of the ones I did touch on is, where you have to dress like a man or act like a man. I think
Yeah.
so for me, I wore dresses, I wore skirts, I wore pants, right? And I still showed the humor side of me. I still showed the empathetic side of me, right? And I think sometimes a misconception is that, okay, women have too much vulnerability or they're not going to make the right decisions because they
Uh,
have this side to themselves, right? Which I think is absolutely wrong. Another big misconception is, which I'm hoping goes away, is that women are not flexible with their schedules, especially when they have families,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? I'm sure you've heard of that one.
Yes.
But 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 it's but a man can be as busy as well if he has a family, right? So I think that's another big misconception. So for me, it's about setting boundaries. You want to have dinner with your family or you want to take your kids to a doctor's appointment. It's priorities and setting boundaries.
Hmm.
And I think other than that, it's just really making sure that the misconception around the traits that women have, and then maybe they're just not as flexible, or they're just too soft in decision making, or they don't have certain male traits. I think that going back to gender diversity, it's so important to have both traits, when it comes to influencing society or organization. So I think those are one few things that I can definitely name when it comes to women in executive roles.
Okay.
They're not cold. They're
Yeah,
human.
yeah, yeah. Um, so you mentioned that you like to wear dresses and skirts at work. And I like I'm gonna take that to mean that you like to embody your femininity, like even in the workplace. So how do you find that balance between self-expression and being authentic to who you are as a woman and professionalism? Although I'm not too fond of the way I just asked this question because it's as if I'm saying they're mutually exclusive, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I think there is a fine line between professionalism and self-expression. So I'll just explain what I mean by that, right? So self-expression to me, so first let's just talk about dressing the
Yeah.
part, right? So first and foremost, what you wear is your armor. It's shielding you, it's preparing you for the battle that you're gonna fight in the real world, right? So what you wear is super important
Okay.
because it it shows how you feel, and it makes you feel confident. It's kind of tricky. It's like showing people how you feel, but it's also making you feel a certain way, right? So it's this protective layer almost that makes you you. So
Right.
I feel that definitely dress how you feel confident and comfortable. But that being said, you can't wear ripped jeans to a board meeting,
Right.
or shorts to a board meeting. So there is that professionalism you have to maintain, right? So it's wearing, it's compliance with the policies of
Yeah.
professionalism at your work environment, and then adding self-expression to that.
Mm,
Right. So it's like saying, well, you shouldn't talk about politics at work. If you love politics, leave that at home. Don't talk about it at work because it's taboo. Or, sometimes sharing too much information at work, or talking about certain areas of life that shouldn't be shared. So I wouldn't mix self-expression with professionalism there. You still need to draw that line. This is
yeah.
work. This is what I can share. When those work people are your friends outside of work, sure, you can talk about politics if they're okay with it, right? So it gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
Um, but I think again, dressing professional, but also knowing your environment and being comfortable in it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would be comfortable wearing a bathing suit,
No.
in
No.
a meeting, unless someone says, this is what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
I love wearing bathing suits, right? So that's my perspective. It's the balance, and it's finding boundaries, finding where can I, if I'm professional, this is what I have to be compliant.
Yeah.
Um, and I think most importantly, I want to touch on that, is about your core values.
Okay.
So if your core values are aligned with your professionalism and where you work, you're good, right?
Give me an example.
So a core value could be, I'm not going to work in a place where there's people making sexist comments, as an example, right? My core values, I'm a feminist. I believe in equal rights, equal opportunity, no discrimination. But when I see that happening at an organization, this is against my core value. Or a simpler example could be, you want your manager to have a relationship, a good working relationship where you have autonomy.
Yeah.
That autonomy is not given to you. It's conflicting with your core values,
I see what you mean. Hmm.
right? So now there is that friction between who you are and who they're asking you to be.
Yeah.
self-expression's out the window. Who you are as a person's out the window, right? So that's where you kind of have to make a decision for yourself and say,
Yeah,
can I survive here because I'm not me anymore,
you have to wear a different hat. Yeah, I get it.
right?
Isn't that asking for a lot? And what I mean is, if you're looking for a job, you know, first you have the certain requirements have to be met. Like it has to like be a reflection of your skills, where you're at in your professional development, salary, benefits, like all that package. But then to like ask to be like for your workplace to be perfectly aligned with your values, I feel like that's a big ask.
No,
And it,
it can be. You're right. And I think that's where your core values should not be like a list of like 20 things, right? I'm hoping it's like maybe three
I
or
see.
five.
Yeah,
And an example would be, you want to work for somebody who would develop you and believes in you, as a professional. An
right.
example, you can kind of test that during the interview with the manager if they're gonna really help you progress in your career. As an example, because
Yeah,
you're ambitious, your core value is that you're ambitious. And now if you go work for somebody who's like, yeah, Nadine, sorry, like you're gonna be in this vision for next 10 years, right? So you're struggling now because you're like, well, I'm an ambitious person at heart. This is what I believe in. Now I'm stuck here, right?
yeah,
So again, it depends on, so maybe being ambitious or maybe having boundaries, like after 6 o'clock, I don't come online, right?
yeah,
Sometimes it's hard to know all of that, to your point, in an interview process, and you're like, okay, I need salary, I need benefits, and these, but I think having a culture of collaboration or a supportive manager, I think everybody wants that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Even if you can get paid like millions and millions of dollars, but if you're being treated against your core values, you wouldn't want to stay, right? So
right.
it's not a black and white answer. It's really just finding your
Yeah,
own,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something you said just a few minutes ago because a question popped in my mind. You talked about having boundaries when it comes to what you share about your personal life. And it's something that I agree with. Um, and yet, when you when you want to bond with your colleagues and when you're having coffee or whatever, like it's inevitable that you're going to talk about your personal life.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder, it's a question that I want to ask you. Do you feel like that's even, or is it more relevant when you're in a position of authority? Like, let's say you're managing people, like you have people who report to you. Is it more, um, is it more important to enforce those boundaries and really be strict with yourself as far as what you're willing to share, with, um, people who report to you, than if you are just, if you're not like super high on the corporate ladder, like you can allow yourself a bit more leeway as far as what you're comfortable talking about.
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about because, so let me address your question, right? So I think with the leadership position, yes, there are certain, so one thing I'm going to share with you, as you go on top, it gets lonely.
Hmm.
It does because your circle becomes smaller.
Hmm.
And to your point, what you can or can't share can become political or can be used against you because you have, as a leader, you have this responsibility on your shoulders that you're carrying the team. It's almost like being a parent, right? Like you're that role model.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Like, with the leader, I mean, there's certain things that I would share, and there's certain, so let's just say, instead of saying, and I don't drink, by the way, but, just saying, oh, I was drinking so much on the weekend. I was
yeah,
partying, right? instead of that, I would say, oh, you know, I had a great weekend. We had a get together. Like I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you can share, but it's like how you share and what you share. And then addressing the second part around it is easier when you're in a junior role because you have less, I want to say, responsibility and burden on your shoulders around being perceived as, oh, she's a leader and she acts like this, right? And I think it also depends on your relationship with your peers. If you've built that rapport and relationship, then yeah, by all means, share whatever you want about your kids, about your life, about your husband, venting about your husband,
Yeah.
whatever you want, right? But I think it depends on where you are in your corporate life and also the kind of relationship you have with your peers.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, so we talked about your desire to offer mentorship to younger women entering the workforce or women who have ambition. And I know that you use your Instagram page to do that. Have you heard from women who follow you or women who come to you for advice? And what do they say about your expertise in that area?
Yeah. So I think from Instagram perspective, you know, there's always, oh, you know, how to say this. If someone's being rude to you, like how do you address that, right? So I try to give quick tips that you can save and quickly share because sometimes when you're in the moment, you need that information handy.
Yes.
And, you know, people like, well, I love this. I would use this next time, you know, when someone is being abrupt or rude or out of line, right? So it makes me happy that I'm adding value, right? And as it comes to mentorship, I actually do mentor people currently.
Like one on one?
Yes. And, you know, it's something that I've been passionate about because when I started my career, I didn't have that. And I knew it was a gap. And I'm like, how can I fill that gap? So you know, the kind of questions they would ask me is like, oh, I have two employees who are, you know, they have a conflict and I want to resolve it. Or I have two people who are doing really well, or I have somebody who's not performing well. So it's very much so, you know, they're in a manager role and they want to know how to navigate, you know, their team and or, you know, if they have a promotion coming up, is this going to take away from me? Should I do it? Right. So some of the patterns that I see in young girls, I saw that in me as well, you know, having a little bit of a self-doubt or, you know, imposter syndrome. Like,
Mhm.
am I qualified to do this, right? So I just encourage them. I give them real life examples from what I have experienced so they can make their decision. And sometimes you just need somebody to listen who's been there and who's done that to kind of because I mean you can go to your mom and ask her how to cook something, but you know, my mom was never a corporate person, so she wouldn't know what to say to me when I share a corporate
Yeah.
challenge with her, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like mentorship provides you that opportunity to have that guide or a guidance rather, right? And really get them to share their experience and empower you and support you.
Yeah. Are there common mistakes that you've witnessed leaders make, or more specifically, women leaders, like a trap that we can tend to fall into more easily than our male counterparts? Or would you say that all leaders face the same challenges?
I think one of the ones that I would personally think that women always get trapped into, it's a really good question, by the way, Nadine, right? Is that women are constantly trying to prove themselves. And they'll try to prove themselves to a point where it costs them their health, they're burning out, it's costing them quality time with their families. Whereas I hope I'm not being a sexist, but guys don't, right? They're part of that. They focus so much on being part of the boys' club and talking about, excuse me, hockey and like sports, right? Whereas women are like, I need to prove myself. I need to prove my worth, right? And I'm like, you're worth it. Stop. You don't need,
Yeah.
and that's why I talk about boundaries as well, because working 18 hours a day or 12 hours a day or whatever it is doesn't make you prove yourself or more important. It only diminishes you
That's
and
so,
brings you value.
yeah, that's so true. And it's sad because without getting too specific, like I have worked with some women who, well, I who were, but still are to this day, I'm sure, fantastic. Like if I was running my own company, I would hire them without a second thought. Like they were just amazing, but they would work themselves to the ground, and even years into their job, I still felt that energy of like I need to prove myself. Like I can't drop the ball, and I can't. And I was like, but this company would fall apart without you. Like I know this. I work with you, and I see everything that you do. Even if they wanted to replace you, they would never find another you. Like there is no other you. Um,
Yep.
so it's so true. It's so true. This not like not owning what it is exactly that you bring to the table and just standing in your worth, knowing that you're not replaceable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100. It's sad and unfortunate. So hopefully we'll change that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think we can change that? Because there is that fear, whether we like it or not, that we can be replaced. Like if we don't keep, it's almost like this anxiety is rewarded. And so why would you why would you try to correct something that leads to you being valued and rewarded, even if it's not healthy for you?
Yeah, and I think that's where you kind of have to have that aha moment and remember. So what I did always in my career is remember that I'm replaceable. I think that, and I'm talking about at workplace, anything and everything, you know, you are replaceable. They will replace you are a number. I know that sounds um and I don't mean to be bitter in any way, but that's just the reality, right? They will find somebody, either one person or two-person, to replace what you do,
Yeah.
right? But that's not to take away what you do and all the value you're adding, but it's important to remember that. And I think that puts things in perspective for you because yes, I'm going to work hard, but also I have to remember at the end of the day, if there's going to be organizational changes, they're going to get rid of me. Is it worth me sacrificing my health? Is it worth me sacrificing my time with my kids who are going to grow up one day and I've missed all of their games or all of their, concerts or whatnot, right? So it's really, I think, sitting back and reflecting and really prioritizing what matters to you, but
Mm-hmm.
also remembering, I tell my team this too. I'm replaceable. They're like, "We love you." I'm like, "I'm replaceable. Anybody can do my job." And it's not to belittle what I do. I know I'm unique and I know I have strengths and I know what I bring to the table. But it's also to say that at the end of the day, my priority is my family and my kids, and I'm not sacrificing that time. And also that I'm replaceable at work, right? And also one more important note, delegating. I think a lot of people have this fear. If I share my knowledge with somebody, oh my gosh, Nadine's going to take my job, right? I think with growth and to become a leader, you need to be able to delegate and empower your team. That's what makes you a good leader.
Mm-hmm.
So being a bottleneck doesn't make you not replaceable. It
Yeah.
burns you out.
That's so well said. That should be like a standalone quote. It's so accurate and it's witty. It's yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Hmm. Do you feel like it's a did you like when you first started managing a team, was that a tendency you had to like struggle to delegate?
A little bit, sorry, go ahead. Were you going to have a
I was just
follow-up?
going to add, like, not necessarily because you didn't want to share your knowledge or empower your team, but just because there was this question of, are they going to do it as well as I can? And I'm accountable for this work, so I might as well just do it myself and ensure that it's like A1.
Yeah, no, 100%. There were times earlier in my career when I became a manager, And I'm like, it's going to take me longer to explain this. So I should just do it myself, right? Sometimes we try to take shortcuts, but in a way, and then again, being a mom,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I need to teach my kids how to fish, not fish for them every time, right? So if you care about your team, you teach them how it's done. And so whenever my somebody from my team would ask me something like, would you like me to walk you through how I do it? Or would you like to try it yourself? And then I provide feedback, right?
Okay.
So I always gave them that option. And I think they really appreciate it, but that does not take away from who you are or what you bring to the table.
Hmm.
Right? Yes, it's they're learning, they're growing, but you're not there to hold somebody back in their role for forever. You want them
Yeah.
to grow and move on to, the next big thing, right?
Right. So we talked a lot about leadership. How would you how would you describe a good leader in just a few words? Like what are some essential non-negotiable qualities that a person has to demonstrate to be an effective leader?
So number one for me is being a role model.
Leading
Don't
by example?
lead by example. Don't be a hypocrite. Like if so again, for me, in few words, I know you said, but it's like really if I prioritize my family and if somebody on my team who has a family, like I show them I prioritize this and they're okay to do that as well. So when they see you do something, then they understand that it's okay for them. So leading by example for sure. I think bringing your authentic self. Don't be a fake, be authentic. And when you are authentic, you're showing who you are as a person, leading, empathy, vulnerability, putting your hand up and saying, I don't know this. People see it and people appreciate it.
Hmm.
And the last part I would say is, lead from behind. And what I mean by that is don't be in the front of and pull people, you know, have your people in front of you, get their buy-in, have them walk with you or in front of you. I think
Yeah.
that's super important.
Okay. This is only the second time that we speak. But my impression of you is that you're very likable, and that a, you must be a pleasure to work with and to work for. Um, do you have you ever worried about being liked? And also, actually, let's start with that. Did you ever worry about being liked by your teammates and by your direct reports?
100%. If I say I didn't, I'm lying.
Okay. Okay. And is the possibility of not being liked something you had to make peace with?
Yes. So, just to kind of 20-second answer on this, right? When I say being like, it's not about people pleasing. It's not about, I'm going to do whatever Nadine says, even though it's against my values, and even though it's wrong, I'm going to do it because I want her to really like me.
Hmm.
Right? To me, that's people pleasing. Or even saying yes to something that I want to say no to, that's people pleasing. So to me, that's not about being liked. That's people pleasing. I think where I would say I want to be appreciated as a leader and recognized as a leader. And that to me is showing who I am, right? And who I am as a person. If I am likable, I'm hoping people will like me, but I've had to had hard conversations with people when they're not performing well. And I know that they're not going to like me for it,
Yeah.
right? But if they trust me and they trust my judgment, they trust my leadership, which I have demonstrated over the years, then they'll understand where I'm coming from,
Yeah.
right? To a point where I have some people, can you give me feedback? How do you think I did? Because they trust and value my opinion. And it doesn't come in a day, in a week, or in a month. I think it's a recurring process and it's something you need to establish, right? So,
Mhm.
yes, I care. People that I care about, I want them to like me and I want them to appreciate me and accept me for who I am. And, the second part too, like, how did I overcome not being like there were people, I tell my kids this too, you're always going to have people who are not going to like you. just like you have people that you don't like,
Hmm.
and you have to be okay with it because you're not everyone's cup of tea or cup of coffee. And I
Right,
think you have to be okay with it because I can't make myself unhappy to make you like me.
right, right. I would just think that it becomes harder to navigate when you have to work with those people and have to work closely with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It definitely becomes hard because now you're managing conflict as well, right? And you can try to make peace with those people and you can try to be an empath and I say, why do we have this conflict? Where's the friction? And try to sort it out. Try, but you may or may not succeed. And you need to make peace with that and say, okay, it's time to, you know, just leave this person be. Let them, Mel Robbins says, let them be and then let them
yeah,
be. And then you take your action and then let me be, right?
right. Yeah, that's true. How do you see yourself in, and now it sounds like I'm I'm asking you, I'm interviewing you for a
No,
job,
you're good.
but how do you see yourself in like 10, 20 years? Um, do you still want to work like do you see yourself just growing even more in your career in the IT field? Do you see yourself touching on something else? Maybe doing conferences, sharing your knowledge? Like what do you have up your sleeves?
Oh my gosh. Now you're really making me think. I'll be honest, I don't think as far as 10 years, but one thing I do know that really drives me that I'm passionate about is helping and having that purpose, right? My purpose is to help others, help women. That's my purpose. So I'm glad I know that, you know, what I can do with it and how I can help others. That's something that I'm trying to figure out. And, I was talking to one of my friends 2 days ago. And I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out what do I want to be when I grow up? So, when you ask me that question, where do I want to be from now to 10 years? That I think that's what's coming to my mind. I've enjoyed my journey in corporate for sure. And it's still continuing and it's been a blessed journey. Now at this age, I do want to give back more and have that purpose and see how I can help the young guns, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
maybe it is being a speaker, maybe it is, taking on more coaching and mentorship. Maybe it's more, one-on-ones or group of women getting together and networking. So all those things sound exciting and
yeah,
to see.
yeah. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, I have a lot of advice when I give to
Okay, so multiple pieces of advice.
I think that one of the things that I've mentioned over and over again is lately just being authentic, right? Being who you are. Just always remember that. And if you're not sure, sometimes just write it down in a journal. So when you feel lost one day, you can come back to it and say, oh, this is who I am. This is what I love. This is what I believe in. I think that's so important because we're all going to come across challenges in life and we're all going to feel lost, one day or another. So it's really important to have that reminder. I call it the brag letter, the brag letter with your achievements, with your values, something that you can just open up and look at. And what I would also tell myself, younger self, is believe in yourself and don't give up on yourself, right? Because there are days when you're feeling beaten down and you're like, I want to give up on this. Don't give up on yourself,
Hmm.
right? And remember, you can have a bad day, but tomorrow is another day. So
Yeah,
just remembering that and remembering what matters in life.
yeah. We all have bad days at work. Can you think of one bad day that was, or maybe not a bad day, but a bad period, a bad something that made you want to give up? Because you mentioned uh that. one advice that you would have is to not give up. Was there a moment where you felt like it, and what led to that? Like, what were you not, what was it that was hard to overcome?
Yeah, I think it kind of ties back to you asked me a question around, being liked or not, right? And I experienced something where somebody just really did not like me. And
Someone
they
above you, or
were my peer. They were my peer.
okay.
And it was no matter what I did, use my empathy, use my relationships, really try to understand where they're coming from. Like I could not get through to them. And they were really trying to sabotage me, my career, really trying to bring me down to a point where I started, you start to get anxious. You're like, this person's watching me, this person's like out there to get me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was probably one of the worst periods of my life where I just could not figure that person out. And I think that person had some challenges of their own beyond my understanding. And, but that person really, did try to bring me down. They were doubting my skills. They were saying that, I don't deserve they were very vocal about what they were saying as
To
well.
you behind your back.
Well, to me and behind my back, right? And that's where it gets really hard because you still want to keep your composure and stay calm and be who you are. And I think that moment in my life was tough for me because it made me doubt myself a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm doing or if I whatever I've done is what I deserved, right? Because so people can do that to you, right? And even though you don't want to give them the right to, or they don't have the right to do that. And I think in that moment, I was like, I don't know if this is all worth it, right? You're just like, is this all this drama, is it worth, the career that I want to follow?
Yeah.
And
I assume that you were happy at the company you were working for.
I
Otherwise,
was, exactly, yeah. And I was happy with the company, everything was fine, right? It was just one individual. And, I had to take time off to really just reflect, spend time with my family to really build myself up, if I can say, right? And then pull out my brag letter to say, I've done this, this, and this, and I deserve whatever I've achieved in life. And I shouldn't let somebody bring me down or someone who's going through something bring me down, right? So I did have to build myself up. And it was tough for sure, right? But it was important to, again, have that support system. And that support system could be your family, it
yeah.
could be a friend, but somebody who's there and supports you and believes in you. And then, I was fine, of course. That person was no longer there because they got what they deserved. And life has its way, I totally believe in karma and I think everything works out in the end. And yeah, I kept on progressing and climbing the ladder and, they were gone. So it was a big hiccup, that tried to drown me. But again, having that self-motivation, support system, recognizing what you've achieved, pulling out your brag letter to really say, you know what, I'm worth it. I deserve whatever I've done. I'm not gonna let one angry person, take away whatever I've done, over the years. So it's important to do that.
Yeah. Um, did you, I don't know obviously like the full nature of the situation, but did you ever like speak to HR about this? Like, because it sounds like that person's behavior was, inappropriate. Because as you said, you're not every we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and we're not going to like everyone either. But in the workplace, there is an expectation of you have to put that aside and um, collaborate. And because we're working for a mission that has nothing to do with you and me and our personalities. So how did it get this far? Like, because again, in the workplace, there's an expectation to put your personal feelings aside and, work towards something. And when that doesn't happen, you can like pull in HR if necessary. So yeah, like what did you have any support at work? Because I'm so happy that you had your family and friends as your support system, and that's super important. But you also kind of need that at work too, right?
Yeah. I had a great manager as well who was very supportive. So I think that's also really important. By the way, sidebar, having a good manager is so important.
Yes, it is. A
It's so
hundred
important.
percent. 100%.
You can work at, this is going to sound bad, you can work at a garbage company, but if you have a good manager, you're good
A
because
hundred percent.
it's so,
I'm gonna give a quick shout out to my former manager, Erin, because I think she
oh,
listens to my podcast, and she is honestly, she set the bar so freaking high. Like she taught me everything I know about corporate communications, and she really deserves this shout out because she's the best, 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 best.
for Aaron, good. No, and yeah, I truly believe in that. And I think that's why I want to be a good manager myself as well. But going back to what you were saying, I think it's whenever you find yourself in a situation, how it got there. Again, I don't know what that person was going through, personal, they had certain issues that they were dealing with. It was very quick how they got there. And you have people come from all backgrounds, all different challenges, all traumas, as I can say, that they have dealt with. But most importantly, I would say don't stoop down to their level. I know it's hard, but also know your rights, know your resources, know your tools, right? So follow the process. And I think in the end, whatever is right will prevail. You will get justice. I know it sounds pretty serious, but that's the reality of it. Use your tools that you have available to really, address certain things. And I know when you have minor conflicts, you can try to with it yourself. But when we're talking about, a bigger scale where people have just gone crazy, for lack of a better term, then yeah, you need to tap into the tools and know your rights and do yourself that favor and make sure that you're treating yourself right and getting yourself that justice, as I said.
Amen. Um, we don't have much time left, but I wanted to touch on a topic that we intended to discuss and that I feel like we didn't get into too much. And it's having I'm going to call it a corporate wardrobe. You talked about the importance of dressing the part and empowering yourself to feel confident through what you wear. So, how do you go about building that? Like, do you have some recommendations to the people listening? Like, you need this, and this is a great place to shop, and because you don't want to spend like half an hour deciding what you're going to wear in the morning. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I believe in having a capsule wardrobe. I don't like to shop a lot. I only like to shop for things that can help me make um lots of outfits,
Right.
right? So how I would go about doing for somebody who's like, I have no idea where to start from. Pinterest is your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Start just finding styles and outfits that you love. Just build a board. It's almost like a vision board. Just start with a blank canvas and start pinning outfits that you love, right?
Yeah.
That will really give you an idea as to what your style is. And then, start really buying those key pieces. For example, for me, it's like having black trousers. is a must, right? Having a nice pair of jeans that I can wear to work on Fridays or weekends is key. Having your whites and blacks basics, absolutely key. Blazer, black, beige, brown, you can never go wrong, right? And then you can really mix and match these outfits to really find your style. But I think you need to first and most importantly know what your style is because a lot of people they go shopping and they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars and they have nothing to wear.
Yeah.
So finding your style and then building your wardrobe around it, you're always going to have something to wear.
Yeah.
So for example, today I wanted to wear something that represented Women's Day. That is rather. It's Happy International Women's Day, by the way.
It's true. Happy International Women's
Ah,
Day too. Look at that.
I know, and this is so relevant, our podcast.
Right? I
Yeah.
didn't even click
So
until
I'm like, well, I want to wear something pink, and I don't. It's a unique color. You don't have a lot of it, but I have one for occasions like this, right? Whenever I'm speaking about women or whenever I'm talking about, feminism and all that. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pull that out,
yeah.
and I have my black basics that I'm wearing underneath, which you can style in many ways.
Uh-huh.
That would be my advice, to really go about building your wardrobe. Just don't waste your money.
Yeah.
Just,
Okay.
yeah.
Let me ask you a question about makeup
Yeah.
because some women don't like to wear makeup. And I feel like it can be it can be hard sometimes to feel like you're fully put together if you're not wearing makeup, and that includes when you go to the office. Um, do you think it's necessary for women to wear makeup to look presentable and put together? And also, isn't that sexist? And isn't that uh like unfair, an unfair expectation to have of women who don't enjoy wearing makeup?
So I'll use an example that I just thought about, or an analogy, right? I mean, brushing your teeth is not optional.
Right.
When you go to work, you need to brush your teeth
Yes.
so that when you're having these conversations, people are comfortable talking to you,
Yes.
not running away, right? Makeup is different, right? So again, I think it really all comes down to your self-expression, how you feel, and how do you feel confident, most importantly, right? Presence matter. Authority comes from how you look and feel. If you think you're going to feel confident without any makeup, you have your, hair done, you're dressed nicely. If it works for you, I would say go for it. But for those of you, just like me, I'm South Asian and I do have dark circles. You can just do a little bit of concealer to not look tired, or those young moms who were having sleepless nights these days, right? You could do no makeup look, I call it, where it's just bare minimum. You're doing a little bit of concealer, maybe a little bit of blush if you want, and lip gloss, which is almost no makeup,
Hmm.
no makeup look, right? So you can do that. And around, is it being sexy? I know a lot of men that wear makeup now, right? But also men get to shave their face and their facial hair. So it
That's
gives them that fresh, fresh
I
look,
see
as you
what
want
you
to call
mean. Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
right? So
That's
for
what
women,
you mean.
I would not say it's a must-have to wear makeup. As long as you think you're going to look good, be perceived as authoritative, and look polished, then go for it.
Mm.
And some of us need more makeup than the other because of our genes.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. Speaking of your background, you mentioned you're South Asian and that your parents were very supportive of what you chose to study and your career. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh, I just heard a strange noise. Okay. It almost sounds like waves, like beach waves.
Really? I don't hear anything.
Okay.
You're
Maybe
good?
it's, yeah, yeah. It's not bothersome or anything. I was just wondering if it was coming from my end or, anyways. Okay. We were talking about your a South Asian background. Um, was that, do you ever feel like that was made to be an issue in your career?
So I think being a woman and then being a minority definitely makes it difficult
Just to stand
because
out more.
yeah, there is more. You don't see people where human beings thrive on getting that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And when you're not seeing many people who look like you, it it does make you feel lonely and it makes it tough for you. And I don't have a lot of South Asian women who are, in the same, I guess, field or in the same level as me. So it was hard, let alone being a woman, right? So, and then there is a little bit of stereotype that is attached to every race. I feel that comes, I don't know, for my parents, it was very much so, they were liberated in a way, be successful, make sure you get education, right? And a lot of people, don't force that or don't encourage that rather, for, their female daughters, right? So for me, it was definitely hard. And you're always hoping that you're not being judged because you are a certain color or, because you come from a certain background. So there is that added pressure that is there, but people don't see it. And
Hmm.
you're just like, there is that proud moment as well where you're like, you know what, I'm unique and I'm doing this and I'm making myself and my family and my community proud. But there's definitely that pressure to, well, I don't want people to think of me a certain way or because I'm a certain color and I need to do the extra work, if we want to call it, because I come from this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I do.
So,
Toronto, where you're from, is a multicultural city. So I would assume that even if you're not surrounded by, let's say, a lot of South Asians, you must have a lot of colleagues and peers who are from different ethnic backgrounds.
yes, I do. I have a very diverse team, which I feel really, really happy about. As it comes to peers, I think we talked about this a little bit as go up the ladder, it gets
Yeah.
lonelier. So most of my peers are male and they're Caucasian. So, that's where we still need to make that change, I want to say, but
Mhm.
it's coming
Yeah.
slowly, surely.
Yeah. Before uh, before we part ways, because we're almost out of time, what message do you have for young female professionals who are just starting out? Like you've shared a lot of your messages throughout the past hour, but what is the main message that you have for them?
I think for me, it's definitely build a network. I think that's important. And don't be afraid to reach out to people. The last thing you want to do is just feel that you're all by yourself. I think when you have a group of other supporters or other people who do similar things or in the same phase as you, it makes you feel you're not alone. So I would say definitely build a network. There's stuff on LinkedIn, there's groups, for women, you can join, make yourself available and do that because your older self will, be very grateful for that. So do that. And then I think most importantly, having that support system, whether it's part of that network or outside, is also important. And most importantly, I said this earlier, like don't doubt yourself, don't give up on yourself. If you have an idea, go for it and be okay to fail also. I think one of the things that a lot of people do, not just women, is they're afraid to fail, so they don't even take that risk. But I feel
Mhm.
that when you're not taking that risk or that step forward, you're going to be left behind. So
Yeah.
be okay to take that risk. Don't overthink. just move forward and go with the flow.
Mm, I love it. Perfect parting words. Samreen, thank you so much for
Thank
chatting.
you.
Um, you were a pleasure to talk to, and I know we'll stay in touch. And I can't wait to see what's next for you because I feel like your mission is, without minimizing the impact you can have in in a company and in the corporate world, like your heart seems to be driven by something a little greater. So yeah, I'm gonna keep up with you and see what you come up with next.
Thank you. No, it was very exciting for me to share my journey and, of course, meet you and share everything, as friends. And hopefully, your listeners will benefit from what we've
I'm
discussed.
sure they will. I'm sure they will.
It was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadine.
Have
Take
a
care.
great day. You too.
Bye.